very warm welcome to OBN Horn of Africa. You are watching our weekly program, Talk to OBN. I am your host, Addis Asafat. Today we have with us Ayana Feyisa, an analyst, to discuss about the ongoing Ethiopian national dialogue. Ayana, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, let me begin with the big picture. What is the role of national dialogue in bringing political transformation in any nation?
Yeah, so this leads us to defining the basic definition of what a national dialogue is and what its intended purpose is in most cases. Right? So, national dialogue is supposed to bring about some understanding, resolution. It's mostly a deliberative task to bring about political issues most of the time, or any issues that create conflicts or armed insurrections. So to resolve these things and the causes of them, to address the causes of them, a national dialogue, is conducted. So by resolving these things, facilitate a peaceful method of conducting politics instead of armed insurrections or open conflicts. So mainly it resolves some core issues as a nation that we have.
National dialogue and reconciliation embraces many stakeholders in it. We can put it a government and non-state actors. Can you tell us the distinctive roles of government and non-state actors in ushering or during handling national dialogue?
But so this varies depending on where the stages of these conflicts or these issues are. In cases where these conflicts have escalated to a level, they have eroded the existence of a central government or a government system. The role of the government is going to be minimal in a sense that it will only be almost merely a participant, as other parties and the circumstance forces it to not have valid facilitative components. In our specific case in Ethiopia, the government is pretty much fully intact. The legislative body and the executive body, and so as the judiciary. So when all these three parts of the government are still functioning, the government's involvement is somewhat tailored to reduce interference, but it's also larger than where it would be had we been dealing with a situation where the central government is not as potent. The parliamentarian system that we have, our House of Representatives has formulated the law and made this commission to come to existence. And by doing that, its involvement is higher, where we might come to touch later. Some stakeholders complain that their part in bringing about this commission is minimal or none, since the one body of the government brought about this commission into existence with law that it has made. So it varies. The government's involvement varies on where it stands in its current state, based on the conflicts and issues it's trying to resolve.
Well, in principle, national dialogue should be ushered with a sense of independent sentiment, and it also has all-inclusive features. Can you tell us what does that mean? All-inclusive, independent from other entities. Are you witnessing that in Ethiopian national dialogue, the ongoing one?
Yeah, so independent is rather a difficult word because it did depend for the national dialogue and the commission itself to come to existence. It did depend on part of the governmental structure that we have. So we cannot say it's completely independent, but in its proceedings, it should be uh, independent in the sense that there is no interference on how it conducts itself. There would be and is a way of reporting and communicating to the body that came into existence, which is the House of Representatives. But uh, I know I'm thinking that you're saying there should be interference. There shouldn't be, um, any arm twisting from the executive body or from the governmental structure in general, outside of the legal terms that are set to supervise the commission. So as of right now, uh, the commission, we will touch on it, I think, more in detail in your later questions, as as you probably have heard me express other places. The level of transparency and communicativeness from the commission's end would have given us a more clear view and better apparatus to make these judgments. But in the future, maybe that would be the case. But with the limited view we have, I cannot conclusively say that there is any involvement or any interference. The government, we can say it cannot be entirely independent and detached from it, as it has a reporting responsibility and it has been formulated by a legal proceeding and a law. So it's but the process of it, for its own benefit, the executive shall not enforce uh, any actions to hinder or circumnavigate the commissions or the dialogue process. Uh, and I don't see anything that, I mean, the media and out there, there are a lot of voices that disagree with me, but I have not anything to tell me that this is the case, right? With the communication I have uh, with the commission to limit it.
What ought to be the role of non-state actors such as civil society organizations, religious groups, community leaders in undertaking national dialogue and holding reconciliation process?
Yeah, so there is
From your experience of other nation, maybe.
I know. Yeah. So, well, I can't call it experience since I have not directly engaged in any national dialogue in other nations, obviously, right? But from just the limited amount of reading there is out there on other nations' experiences, the handbook, from the UN on national dialogues and other readings, and common sense as in general to what, because we have to tailor, even though we can use frameworks from other experiences, we have to understand that Ethiopia has a unique circumstance in its history, all the way here in its issues, and how we have resorted to different tactics to resolve our issues. And general components are, they differ from one nation to another. And in Ethiopia's case, there could be high variance. That being said, non-state stakeholders, all stakeholders, including state stakeholders, uh, have uh, one major role, one common role, which is to advance the national dialogue as a necessity, not only to other parties but to all Ethiopians, to all uh, the nation's citizens. It is not, it's not the PP party's national dialogue. It's not the government's national dialogue. It's not here to benefit one or the other party. It is for the continuance and betterment of the nation itself. So taking that to heart is one thing. The other thing is refraining from using our usual political structure and style, which is defame, right? So immediately, if we don't feel like something is controlled by our interest, immediately we turn to our old tactics or usual tactics of how we do politics. Refraining from that is necessary. A lot of tolerance, a lot of ownership is needed. A lot of holding, steadfast to some of the small things that we need to fruish, and avoiding from diminishing this because it benefits all parties. But anything beyond that, as the National Dialogue Commission is a facilitator of the dialogue, it is also, incumbent again on the National Dialogue Commission to actually provide stakeholders not only the opportunity, but also the clear accountability and responsibility of what their roles are, right? So that they're going to be involved in the discussion process. Some media actors, could be individuals, engaging and allowing people to actually take their part and make it a collaborative effort, because just 8 or 12 people, or few hundred people that have selected to cooperate across the nation is not going to cut it. For 125 or so million people to have a national dialogue, there needs to be a big collaborative attitude. So that is not just based on the commission, but the people also. We need to feel like these people cannot do it. This commission cannot just bring about a national dialogue with the effort and facilities of that limited organizational structure. Everybody needs to back it, and they need to facilitate ways that people are willing and understanding enough to back the commission, the process.
In my readings, I came across that reconciliation is a process in which two entities or two polarized units come together to undertake a peace process. But in Ethiopian case, can we say the ongoing thing has reconciliation in it? Because there has to be antagonist and protagonist in this context. But in Ethiopian case, there is a very horrific civil war, ethnic tension to the extent of reconciliation literature tells. So is that possible to say Ethiopia is going to hold a reconciliation process?
Well, I mean, I don't know in the future if we have any reconciliation
so yes, the largest extension of national dialogue is said to be reconciliation. So in this context, can we say Ethiopia is holding a reconciliation process or only national dialogue?
Well,
the degree is not the same. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes. Right now we are
in Rwandan case, you can say reconciliation. Yes, go ahead.
That is, the reconciliation is an outcome, pretty much, right? So reconcile is to make peace and also to forge a way to move forward. It is an outcome of that dialogue. We hope will lead us to reconciliation and equitable justice process, and forging a way and forging laws and policies that will lead us to more symbiosis, to a more peaceful process going forward, and bringing that about reconciliation could be one of the tools, one of the outcomes of the dialogue. Right now, where we are is we are actually selecting participants, selecting issues, and narrowing down from a wider variety of issues and participants into a more narrower and more segmented part of it. Right now, it's like an ocean, because we are talking about disabilities, gender, religion, politics. It's just a lot of things. We are trying to, the national dialogue process is trying to cover ground from the smallest grassroots issues that are brought about, and then narrowing down to our most serious issues, which eventually is going to end in the political and peace arena. But for right now, it's taking everything into its fold and going forward. So eventually, when we get to the political side, we're going to be discussing, I'm hoping, or at least assume, the historical things and recent and much further history, and going back in history and see what are the harms done, any resentments held against each other, any crimes committed, and all of these things, any harms will come to the front, and those wounds are to be healed through a reconciliation process. The national dialogue, both in its inception and the law that formulates it, and also some communication from its commissioners, clearly states that it's not the end all, right? It will be prescribing us remedies to the issues that will be identified through the process. Remedies of legal remedies of reconciliation, but in some cases, like you said, like in the Rwandan case, like I said, for framework purposes, we can take East Germany, Rwanda, whatever part you want to go and take. It's good to help us, bring framework to some degree, but it has to be tailored because none of the experiences of the other nations fits us directly. So we didn't have that type of clearly one nation harming the other, one ethnicity committing that type of atrocity directly towards the other, and we know who harmed, and then we are trying to deliberate towards reconciliation. So we have to identify all of these things and have some leveled argument, because right now the arguments are upside down. Everybody has their own small set of facts that they argue upon, and everybody in their set of facts is a victim, right? So to bring that closer and have somewhat of a level ground, some understanding, we need to have a dialogue to get to that place. From there, we can jump to, we can move towards reconciliation.
Well, let me ask you this again. The ultimate role of the National Dialogue Commission is facilitating a platform to undertake a national dialogue among nations. So who going to take the execution part later?
Some of these things, but by law, right? By law, it is to report back to the House of Representatives with results and recommendations of the national dialogue, which will conclude the mandate of the National Dialogue Commission. The National Dialogue Commission probably will not decide or determine what the outcomes should be, but whatever remedies are recommended are backed by an extensive dialogue between the people. So there is to be, I'm of the mind that there will be at least one more commission at the minimum to deliberate on the findings of this national dialogue. And there are going to be changes in law and all kinds of changes. And this national dialogue process will take us from facilitating, selecting participants, selecting issues, holding discussions, narrowing down the discussions and identifying the issues, and taking those recommendations to the House of Representatives, or whatever the body is determined after. But for right now, it's the House of Representatives that will be hearing the report and recommendations of this national dialogue.
After this national dialogue, another body should set up to undertake this execution mandate, or?
Yes. So either the national dialogue commission itself will have updated mandate and an extension, which is very unusual, uh, or or we could have a newly formulated commission that will be taking upon the tasks set ahead that are results of the dialogue process. So that's generally what the frame I think 1265 puts in the law. From that framework, what do we take and extrapolate is that nothing is set in stone for this process. We know we can have this process, and also, some parties talk about the outcomes already. This is not the outcome commission, right? This is the dialogue commission. So the dialogues should not have a precondition besides the inclusivity, like inclusiveness, and non being non-partisan. So major things that are set forth in its laws. If it has that, I think the outcomes should be determined later on.
Ayana Feyisa, thank you very much for your insight and invaluable commentaries about the ongoing national dialogue in Ethiopia.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, thank you for watching. This brings to the end of our edition for today. See you next time with another edition. Bye-bye. Take care.